This is Hey, what's happening, everybody? This is Craig with High Speed Daddy. I have my co-owner here, George, who's High Speed Daddy half apparently today, and we also have a special guest, Mitchell, that we'll get into in a little bit as to why he's here and why he has expertise in a topic that we're talking about today. But I first want to say thank you, everyone who's joining. Thank you, everyone from the High Speed Daddy community, the High Speed Daddy Facebook men's group, Provide, Protect, Connect, and our friends over at Culture City. So thank you, everyone who has come in here. I'm getting a little bit better at that, aren't I?
You are. That was the smoothest one.
Yeah, I am getting a little bit. And we've got Joseph on. Sweet. Joseph's like
always there.
He's always there. He missed last week by chance, but Joseph is preparing for a boat trip, if you know what I mean, George. So he's going to be going away for
MEU.
Mitchell, Joseph's a Marine buddy of ours who comes on just about every live. So we just want to give props out to George.
Of course he does. He's at Lejeune. He's going to try something to do to find a semblance of happiness.
So everyone, just to give you a little background on our special guest today, Mitchell is actually my former platoon sergeant, and now onto other stuff. But, you know, I felt that he had some of the most pertinent, at least that I was aware and for this topic today, information, some tips, and some stories about what he went through while deployed a couple times with a family member or with family members that were back at home. And, you know, a topic today, and we just launched it through our email list, was a great blog post on how to cope with family members at home while being deployed. And being deployed, we're talking about, you know, military members. It could also be law enforcement. It could also be other first responders and people that go away for a long time, basically separated from their family for other bigger purposes and missions. So we decided to bring Mitchell on. I know it was a little last minute. You know, we kind of threw him together. He's over there not wearing pants because everyone's virtual. So it's all fun because I'm not wearing pants either. And I know for a fact George isn't. So
they're overrated. Pants are overrated.
They are definitely overrated.
Pants are for rookies.
There you go. And to be honest, I'm definitely just wearing Ranger panties. I know George is over there in his silkies, and I'm sure Mitchell's the same way. But
good explanation for it.
We just basically, you know, Mitchell, how about you tell us a little bit about your background, you know, and as much information as you want or don't want to give. And then we'll get into maybe some tips, tricks, and little hacks, and possibly some funny stories you have from, you know, being overseas with a family at home.
Sure. So my name is Mitchell. I'm currently and still first sergeant in the 114th. I deployed with the 102nd recently, and we were in Somalia. It was an interesting little deployment. Other than that, you know, I'm sure you can read about it if you're interested in it. I'm not going to get into the details of that. I also deployed in 2008 to Iraq. We were in Camp Syverson with the SF, and that was my first combat deployment. I was married. I'm married both times. My wife, the first deployment, my wife and my son, and the second deployment, wife, son, and daughter. And before we start, so I have some notes. That's why I keep looking to my right, your left. Before we start, I just want to let everybody know that this is an emotion, right? So this is how I dealt with being deployed and being separated from the family, and what works for me and my emotion and getting me ready doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for everybody. But these are tips and tricks that I've used in the past, especially on the second deployment. Not so much the first deployment. The first one was emotionally a complete show. But like I said, emotions are hard to put into words, and you know, and a feeling is tough to describe, like many feelings. So,
well, let me ask a little question. So the first deployment, you went over. It was just a wife and pretty much a newborn son, right? Yeah. How old was he at the time?
He was roughly 2.
Okay, so toddler.
Yeah, toddler. Yep.
But at that point, like he just knows the fatherly figure went away, right?
Right. Exactly.
It wasn't.
For him to understand, and definitely it's definitely an emotion that tears at you a little bit.
Yeah. And then the second deployment where you recently came back, you had a second kid, and they were both of them old enough to kind of recognize what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, so your oldest was young teens, and your youngest, just before that, a little bit younger, but both knowing that daddy's going away and know that pretty much they know details at that point and they comprehend what's going on and pretty much why you're going over. So it's a lot. I could see, where deployment 1 was completely different than deployment 2 for you. As it relates to the family. Right.
It's two ends of the spectrum. With my daughter did understand, not necessarily why. She was 8 this last deployment, and my son is 13. So my son, I can just basically lay it out, and he chewed on it for a while, and he's very good at, in my opinion, hiding his emotions. I'm actually very surprised at that. Where most kids don't really swallow it as good as some others wear their stuff on their sleeve, and that's it. So my daughter, she was very, very emotional. It was a rough go, daddy's little girl type thing. I adored her, and but the notes I put down is what do you do in the military, before you get ready to do anything, right? You do a PMCS, right, on a vehicle, and that's how I basically broke it down. 3 separate, categories. You have your prior, your PMCS, your preventative, and then you have your during, and then you have your after checks. And your prior pretty much sets you up for success. So, for me, it was getting your will, right? Which is, it's one of those things that you go through before you deploy, right? So you set up your will, your power of attorney, you make sure that the wife or your significant other has access to just basically everything, soup to nuts. Now, in my case, it was my wife. In other people's cases, especially if you were young, I had a lot of 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds on this last deployment. It's tends to be their mom, their grandmother, their aunt. I don't recommend a girlfriend, for obvious reasons. It never pans out in the direction that you intend.
Did we have guys over there like that went through issues, and did they have?
I did.
George.
I had enough Lance Corporals for all of us.
So it's not highly recommended. And actually, the military kind of frowns upon it. They do counsel you and try and talk you off the ledge. And there are horror stories out there. I won't indulge in that. But so that's the prior, the preventative. The before you go. During, it's keeping up with your mental health. And that's first and foremost. And whether it's working out, right, which definitely helps. Sleep, proper sleep, which is tough to get, overseas, especially if you're on a weird schedule or you're hopping around on different rotations throughout the night, or then you switch to days, or then you switch to evenings. So, getting on a proper sleeping schedule, it helps with your mental health. Talking to your family on a regular basis, whether that's every day, whether it's once a week, whatever your mission allows you to do. And then I have keeping up on family issues. Now, that's the hard thing. So for some it works, but for others it's a big distraction. And my wife, who she is a saint. I doubt her to be a saint, and she has some stories that would. When I came home, I was just in awe. Like, holy crap! I can't believe you just dealt with all that. And she kept it from me because she knew the nature of the missions and the nature of the stuff that we were going through. over there, she didn't really want me to be distracted. So
Now, was that for deployment 1 versus deployment 2, or both were very similar? Because your communication in '08 as compared to this time around, not 18, 19, whatever, was completely different, right?
yeah, so in '08 it was tough. There was no internet, there was no cell phones over there.
Sat
It
phones.
was what's that?
I said we just
Sat
stole
phones, yeah.
sat phones. Yeah, $1,500 a minute.
Yeah, so we didn't have sat phones. Some of our sites did, but we had landlines, and I was able to call Toby Hanna, and Toby Hanna patched me through to the house. Now, depending on what my schedule was, where my missions were, what time they were, it was hard to get a hold of somebody. So then I left a message on the answering machine or whatever the case is. Email was big. I did a lot of, email pecking and stuff like that. And then occasionally, if we were really good and there was a lull in the missions, I was able to set up a time where I can go to the MWR, which the military sets up for you. It's I forget what it's morale and welfare readiness or something along those lines. You can go to there, sit on a computer with a webcam, and Skype with the family. Back then it was Skype. Yeah, it was Skype. So I got my wife over there. She's kind of coaching me. But those instances were few and far between, just because of everything that was going on. The technology wasn't there. The internet was always down. Anytime somebody got hurt or some incident happened, the Army shut down the internet, and that was it. Like, you couldn't talk to anybody until the family was notified, that for whatever reason.
And then this go around, it was you had almost daily checks in, right? You had the ability to do that this time around.
So I took my smartphone with me, and we got pucks, which and we did a VPN, virtual private network, back to the United States, and that's how I was able to text and communicate with the family, and it was daily, a couple times. It was good and bad.
Okay.
Good in the sense where, like, hey, anytime information can be relayed. Hey, just checking in. How did Nathan do with his soccer game? How did Bella do with dance or whatever? Bad because when she didn't hear from me, it was
when you're on a schedule, right? Like, hey, I'm going to call you 8 o'clock every night or something like that, and you miss an 8 o'clock for reasons unknown, right? Things pop up, things happen, meetings, missions, etc. Instances happen, and when you don't go on that certain schedule, I could see how things could get a little complicated there.
Yeah. So do I recommend? It worked for me for a little bit. I did actually like having constant contact with the family. I was able to FaceTime them and stuff like that. Not necessary, but it wasn't just another thing that I had to worry about. And so what worked for me might not work for everybody.
Okay.
Everybody else. So you got to find that comfort zone that you're comfortable with. I know there were guys who weren't doing that, and that's what worked for them because it kept their head in the game.
Yeah, everyone processes things differently. Like you mentioned before, emotions, right? And you have to find what works for you. It's that bit of self-awareness, right? There's things, in George and the High Speed Daddy community, we talk about, the exercises and breath work, cold water therapy, meditation, eating right, and all these things that can help you stay in a positive mindset, focus, and things along those lines. But not everyone does all those things. You have to kind of find what works for you, what works well with your body, with your mind, to do that. And I can definitely tell how, you and your soldiers have to figure out, what works for them.
Having that talk before you go is key as well. And I kind of left that out, but having that talk, that sit down with your family and making them understand, hey, I'm doing this, not because for political reasons or whatever it is, not because of beliefs. This is because I genuinely care about the dude to my left and the dude to my right, and it is an obligation. It is something I signed up for. There is that big. It's kind of gets overlooked a little bit, especially in today's society with how everybody is, and
it gets overlooked a lot of it. And there's a lot of people from the outside that don't understand that. Yeah, we signed a contract, and for certain reasons, but once you're in, it's a completely different reason. You are doing it, selfless service for your brothers and sisters to the right and to the left of you. And I know George could go on and talk about that stuff, and he's been through issues where some of those people are not around anymore, and things along those lines. And very similar, Mitchell, with you and people as well, whether things happen while they're there or things happen when they came back home, right? And it sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I had, I was a platoon sergeant in the second rotation. First rotation, I was a supply guy. But the second rotation, I was a platoon sergeant in an infantry company and, in a reconnaissance company. And when my soldiers had issues with home life, they were family, and you wanted to help them in any way possible. So
yeah, you're the big brother or the godfather, whatever maybe called. You're the guy to go to, right?
So that's another aspect that we're keeping your mentally resiliency comes into play. It's a tough thing to balance. It really is. It's a tough thing to balance. Yeah, you gotta. My wife says you gotta compartmentalize. So. But yeah, she's absolutely right. And then the only other note I have is after, right? So you're after your checks and balances and your reintegration back into the family. You can't come in like a bull in a china shop and like start to just wrecking shit. It's tough. And then seeking help when you need it, going to the VA, making sure that you're mentally and physically okay, and your blood pressure doesn't go up. And for me, it was kind of a weird situation. We came home in December, and then like I started, I took some leave and I started getting integrated back into the work environment, and COVID happened, and they were like, "You're going to stay home and work from home for the next, until further notice." And I was like, "Yeah, all right, I'm down with that. Like, staying home. You gotta tell me twice, I'm good." So
introvert,
cool.
yeah.
So it was kind of cool to be home and spend that extra, couple months with the family. Believe it or not, it was like 3 months, right? Probably. Yeah, and I got like an extra 3 months with the family. Now I was still working stuff through VPN and stuff through the military, but it was really like a good thing to make up some of that lost time. So
It's a good thing, but I could see it also being a very tough thing because you're not around those guys you're used to being around, right? You're not with that other family. How I always used to reference it, right? I'm with my other family. When I got out of the military, I had to leave a family to go be more present with my actual family, right? So it's like I could see how that's a very hard thing to do as well with COVID going on. You're not around or seeing the people you see, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, whatever it may be, or checking in with those guys. I could see your job being a shit ton harder now because you're not checking in with them. And, especially, you came back, you had promotions, things like that. And, you change units, so you're not around, those guys that you deployed with only a month earlier, 2 months earlier, right. Things along.
And
so
I got to see them, the award ceremony, which was good. I really did. Seeing them guys made it like I missed them, and I still miss them, and every once in a while I'll pick up the phone, reach out, make sure they're doing okay. Social media does help with that. I get to see a lot of them, on social media and see what they're up to, and their Instagrams and their Snapchats and all included. But good though. I check them out.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to pass things over. I know, sorry, George is usually talking a little bit more here. George has strep throat right now, or something very similar, equivalent to it.
I think I do have a couple of thoughts, Craig.
Yeah, I was going to say, I figured you did. I was going to pass you, Mike.
Yeah, so I think the thing is that I mean, Mitchell nailed it when you think about it, right? Like the one thing, and I never understood after 12 years of my life, is like, why do I work for 18 months to go work for a month? But it all makes sense when you reflect back as a mature human being, right? But I learned a lot on my first deployment being 20 years old and in Somalia for 13 months versus being 32 and in Afghanistan for 7 months. And everything is like, you just have to make sure that you do the diligence, you have the needed conversations, you authentically express yourself, right? And so you prepare things the best that you can, understand that things are going to happen when you're gone. You prepare yourself there and the people that are there, then you prepare yourself to go. And you have to figure out what works for you. Like there was a point for me in Somalia where I couldn't call home anymore because I was losing it. Like I was out of the game. Like I needed to stay in that mindset of like eat, lift, sleep, work, eat, lift, sleep, work. And, you know, my tilt was when I lost my first Marine. I was good until then, but I had to compartmentalize a part of that. And I knew I wouldn't be able to process that until I came home, but out there wasn't the space to process that. And so that changed the way that I did business. And then I think the most important part that is missed and not supported from a military standpoint is, of course, when we come home, does anybody need to talk before you get 5 days off? Like nobody's going to say yes to that, right? So honoring yourself and honoring the process of like the time that it could take. And I think every military person is exposed to PTSD, no matter what you see, whether you deploy or not. Like we're around it. It's osmosis. We're, you know, trained to be a certain way. And so honoring that feeling and also having the courage to tell people that that's what you're going through and that's how you're feeling and that be okay, because holding on to that stuff is not good. You know what's happened to me, you know, hospitals in and out of it, you know, plant medicine, things like that. And so I think honoring yourself and having that support system and understanding that when you come back, it's not, I come back and life is normal. That is not what it is. There's a reintegration period and it can take years. Like I think people underestimate when you are in mission mode for 7 months straight or 9 months straight, and you're not sleeping as much, you're drinking coffee, you're eating MREs, you're out of the wire, you're only showering once a week, you forget to brush your teeth. Like there's things that you get okay with that are not okay when you're home. And there was a part of me that was overwhelmed, right? I'm like, I'm supposed to wake up, I'm supposed to brush my teeth. And then I remember sitting in traffic and I was like, what is this? We would just push cars out of the way, right? Like there were things that were different. And I think it's really about honoring yourself, honoring the process, and never going at it alone. And I'd say the most important part is when you come back, never going at it alone and having that support system where you understand that there's people that have experienced things because you were gone, and you have to have the capacity and the structure to support and hold. And then they have to understand that you experienced things when you were gone, that they have to have the capacity and structure to hold. And like really looking at it from that team dynamic, whether it's a friend, a neighbor, you know, family, a spouse, a parent. I think that's the most important part, that if I could go back in time to 16 years ago before I put boots on ground and give myself any advice, it would be like, remember these things. And then that would be what I carried forward today.
Yeah, that's spot on. You know, and I want to point out one thing you mentioned there. It was basically the people that stayed home, that held the home fort down.
Yep.
You know, they went through their own version of a 9 month, right?
Yep.
And everyone gives the, you know, accolades. Thank you for your service. You know, they don't understand, but they want to support or something like that. Thank the families that stayed home as well and held down the fort and had to shuttle the kids around and you know, things along those lines, right?
Yeah, it's easier to hold a 21-year-old man who's being an immature crybaby on deployment than it is to have a 3-year-old as a single parent when you're out there, right? Yeah. Like I can't kick the 3-year-old in the shins, but I can kick the 21-year-old in the shins. Like, wake up, dude. Wake up, bro. Yeah. Craig, the one thing, sorry, you brought something up. This is the last time I'm going to talk. I know you're shocked. The one thing I wish somebody told me, and I will say this to anybody going on a MU, getting deployed, is there is a massive amount of dissonance that's created because it doesn't feel like you've been gone. You leave and the world and your life and your family is in one state, And when you are out here, you're like, oh, I'm just on vacation. I'm out here. I'm going to come back and it's the same. People grow. People have children. People get married. People get divorced. Businesses close. Businesses open. Like a lot has changed. And I never heard anybody talk about reintegrating yourself, but also realizing that you're coming back to a new world. It is not the world that you left. It is very different. And even if you come back to the same house, the same unit, the world has progressed 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And I never understood that concept until I came home and I saw it in action. And that was a big thing to wrap my brain around. Like habits are different, people are different, friends have outgrown, they've moved and things like that. And I think that's another big part that's important to remember.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I put, bull in a china shop type thing.
Yeah.
Come back and then start, this is how we used to do it. Like,
Yeah.
force everybody to, abide by your beliefs before you left. Like things are different. Your son is more independent now. You just got to suck that up and drive on, and let him continue to grow, because you can't come home and tell a 13-year-old like, no, you're not doing that one thing. Like, no, I got something for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just gotta kind of. It's like when you go to a new unit. You sit back, you look left and right, you observe, you take notes or whatever, and then slowly start to make changes if you need to make changes at all.
Yep.
You can't go in and start like strong arming things and strong arming people. It just won't turn out good for you. So reintegration is key, man.
Yeah. Yeah, Craig, when I left for Somalia, MySpace was the thing. And when I came home, Facebook was the thing. In 13 months, MySpace disappeared and Facebook was created. And then when I left for Afghanistan, I had a flip phone and I came home to an iPhone.
Nice.
Like, I'm like, it's nuts to think about. Like, it's really, really nuts to think about.
Well, that's how fast technology moves, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it sounds like communication is some of the biggest key, especially on the reintegration and talking, and even whether it's just displaying your feelings to your loved ones, like, hey, daddy's kind of feeling this, or your husband, whatever, the wife, I'm feeling this, I don't know how to process it. Help me understand. Or, hey, what's the new routine? What's going on with this? The kids are in school, the kids are out of school, new jobs, things along those lines. What can I kind of help and ease into? Because like you said, things aren't the same when you come back. You're a different person. They're they're different people. So it's big into communication. Maybe starting up, a family meeting night or something like that. Hey, why don't you explain to me what you guys have been doing in the last week, last month? Things along those lines.
Yep.
Yep.
So a funny story. When I was deployed the first time, the heater, the furnace in our house blew up twice.
She had to deal with that with a 2-year-old.
With a 2-year-old. Yep. In the winter, and she told me the whole story when he came. She totally kept it from me. Like, everything's good over here, nothing to report, This is like, let me keep driving on with my thing, right? So two key takeaways from that is, one, having that talk before you go, like I said, making sure she's on board with, hey, I'm going to be, doing X, Y, and Z, possibly, and having her understand. And then, there is a little bit of discretion that is left up to the wife to, not tell you every little detail, you know what I mean? Because that could, possibly throw your world off axis a little bit. So, and it depends on the wife, right? Yeah. There are other things too that the wife has, and that's kind of probably another story for another time. But the FRG and there's government programs out there and stuff like that is designed to help the family and stuff in situations like that. So she kept that from me, and then in Somalia, what the hell was it? The well went, and so she dealt with that as well. So
Oh man,
she told me about it and stuff, and what I want to have known. I mean, yeah, they're right. She's right. She's yelling, "There's nothing you could have done," and she's absolutely right. Knowing about it now, I'm glad it's over and done with. I can't believe she handled all that stuff.
And now you don't have to, right? You don't have to go fix the well. You don't have to go fix the air conditioner, the heater, and stuff like that.
Oh, I got a brand new well. Like,
there you go. You're good to go for a while.
So yeah, I'll be good for a while. So yeah, there is that that having her on board or him on board, whoever deployed. It is, but it's a good thing, and I do think that a lot of families don't understand that, and having that sit down and explaining it to them, like, listen, if you can handle it, like, I probably don't need to know about it. I don't need to worry about it, other than, now I'm not saying keep like major things like family health, like that's something totally different. If dad gets sick and he got into a car accident or whatever, knock on wood, that's different. That's a call to the
chaplain,
Red Cross, and the
Red Cross to push it through. Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah, it sounds like, I mean, having those the plan ahead of time, right? The contingency plans, and everyone knows, 2 is 1, 1 is none, or whatever it may be. But having that talk ahead of time as to the escalation procedure on what to do at what point, for certain items, hey, if it's anything family health related, that pass that on, definitely. If it's something you can address, I hate saying this because everyone's in a different situation, but some people like to say that, hey, if a problem can be fixed with money, it's not a true problem, right? It's that, don't take it out of context, because money is a very, very important thing, but and it's different it's different in every situation. But you can kind of apply that little principle in a way, such as, hey, if you can go buy a new furnace and have that corrected, and I don't have to stress about it, then hey, go do that. And if there's money in the kitty to do that and whatnot, cool. But it's a different story if, hey, the furnace went and we don't have the money to do it, like, that's maybe talks to have beforehand. Hey, is it tapping a line of credit? Hey, is it asking, is it going on, line of credit could be a credit card. Is it financing? Is it whatever, friends, family to help out in the short term until you get home or something like that. But having those talks ahead of time, as you mentioned several times during this talk, it sounds like it's definitely key, so having that plan in place.
Exactly. And it's important, to be part of a team on the home front and a team on, Team Army or Navy, Marines, whatever it is. So it is compartmentalizing and making sure that everything is squared away before, during, and after a deployment. It's important. So yeah, that's how I relate it. PMCS, just like a vehicle, you check it before, check the oil, make sure it's good, do all that stuff, and then when you come back, you checked everything and make sure it's good for the next time or whatever. And
for everyone wondering, PMCS, and correct me if I'm wrong if I say this, preventative maintenance check system, right? Okay. It's been a couple years, so you got to slap me around if I forget things. But dude, that's awesome. I'm so happy that you came on and that you could display your story here, your information. I know there's lots of tips and tricks that came out of this. And if anyone, who is watching later on, has questions or anything like that, you can send it right through, and I'll get in there and answer comments, whether it's on Culture City, whether it's in the High Speed Daddy Provide Protect Connect group, or just a regular High Speed Daddy Facebook page or Instagram for that matter. We're all over the place, right? But if you got questions, leave them in the comments or DM us, private message us, and I'll get back to you, and we can help out. And if for some reason you want to connect with Mitchell direct, we can maybe set something up like that as well through a filter of my guidance, something along those lines. But dude, I'm so happy you came on. I appreciate it. You and the missus in the background. Thank you so much for both coming on, and I appreciate everything, including still that you're serving. So I appreciate that, man. It means a lot to me, and the continued support all the way, from the beginning of High Speed Daddy. So for those of you wondering, Mitchell was around when this was just like a figment of my imagination, this whole thing, High Speed Daddy. So we had several conversations in the beginning. Oh, say that again. We had a little feedback.
Yeah, I remember seeing the first bag, the prototype, and you came in. You were like, "Hey, check this out! I'm thinking about doing this." I was like, "That's awesome! Like that's a good niche environment. Good thing to get into. Yeah, I liked it. It was high speed.
Yeah, so he's seen the whole escalation as we've gone, everything from first prototypes and ideas all the way through, to where we are today, and the awesome community that we've created and share this information with. So I just want to say thanks, dude. I really appreciate all the support from the beginning. Thank you, George, for coming on once again, even though your throat is probably on fire and you got to go down
That's all
some
good.
Dayquil.
It was medium speed until the Marines came in. Now it's high speed, Daddy.
There you go. Yeah. You like to think that.
I had to.
Yeah. I hold on. Where are my kids' crayons? So
We don't know how to use those. There's too many colors.
There you go. I don't have any within arm's reach. However, I just really, really quick want to tell everyone that we just launched 14 new patches on the website. Yes. Go on, throw them up. We got some. They're in there. We've got high speed daddy, high speed mommy, daddy. We've got 5 variations of the American flag. They're all rubber, waterproof. They're not going to fall apart like embroidered ones do sometimes. They're all listed on the website at highspeeddaddy.com. You can go check them out. Sorry, Mitchell, that I'm doing this real quick. We literally got them up last night. So, we will get some better photography in there and whatnot. But they are classic. They are awesome. Go check them out, and we'll go from there. But everyone, thank you for all that joined us today and all that are joining us in the future. Whenever you're watching this, we appreciate it. And if you have any comments, questions, go leave them below, and we'll go from there. All right, we'll catch everyone next time.
Bye.